What's going on, guys? My name is Steve. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Today we're going to be reacting to why American and European trucks are so different. On this channel, I generally react to all things related to the UK and Ireland, but every once in a while I come across a video that is more generalized European in nature, but that I feel ties in very well to what I'm trying to learn on this journey. And this is one of those videos. You know, when I came across the thumbnail of this video, I noticed that the European truck in the thumbnail looks very similar to the same types of trucks I've seen in both the UK and Ireland. And that obviously makes a lot of sense, you know, considering that both the UK and Ireland are European countries, they're just not attached to mainland Europe. And considering that both the UK and Ireland were at one point part of the European Union, it makes a lot of sense that the UK and Ireland would also probably have generally the same types of trucks as the rest of mainland Europe does. You know, obviously, I do know that I believe the Republic of Ireland is still part of the European Union. Please let me know if I'm wrong on that, but I think that the Republic of Ireland is still part of the European Union, and it's Northern Ireland along with the UK that is no longer part of the European Union. But anyways, guys, you know, looking at the differences between these two trucks, there seems to be quite a few things that stand out. And one of those that really stands out is that the European version of the truck seems to be very short. It seems to be very compact compared to the US version. And I'm really curious about that. As someone who knows quite a few people in the trucking industry, I've spent quite a bit of time in those types of large trucks. I don't know what you guys call them over in the UK or Ireland, but we would call them either transfer trucks, semis, 18-wheelers, long haulers. But generally speaking, no matter what you call them, they are the very large trucks that transfer goods from one place to another. And in a lot of cases are transferring goods across country. Please let me know in the comments what you guys call these types of trucks, but I don't really know what to expect here. This is a pretty short video, but I think it'll be really interesting to kind of learn about some of the differences between European and American trucks. So let's just go ahead and dive in and check this out.
Why European and American trucks are so different. American and European semi-trucks are very different. In America, you see all the trucks with a long nose and wheelbase with the cabin behind the engine.
Right.
Whereas trucks in Europe are cab-over trucks where the cabin is above the engine.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But why are they so different, and what are the advantages and disadvantages? Let's take a look at it. Livable. One of the reasons why the American trucks have bigger cabs is that owner-operators are very common in the US and not so much in Europe.
Really?
These people own their trucks and pretty much live in them for months at a time.
Yeah.
Because they spend so much time, and some have to live in the cabin, these cabins are quite a bit larger and have more features in the cabin, such as a fridge, microwave, freezer, wardrobe, large bed, windows, and some even have their own toilet. Owners modify their trucks to include huge living compartments, something not so common in Europe. It is, of course, also possible to spend several days in a truck with a cab over, but the comfort is just not nearly as high. Long, wide.
So that's interesting, guys. So in Europe, including the UK and Ireland, so your long haul truckers, I mean, do you even have, I guess you do have what should be considered long haul truckers, but you guys don't actually have beds and kind of the comforts of home in your truck. That's interesting. I never would have expected that. You know, I'm just so used to seeing the trucks we have back here in the US, and some people really go all out on basically making their trucks home. You know, I know a guy who actually lives in his truck full time. And, you know, I mean, it's amazing, but it literally looks like a very small house in the back, a bed and nice fridge, big screen TV, you know, just very, very comfortable. And it makes sense because he drives all day and then he relaxes at night and then gets up the next morning and drives all day. And, and I mean, when you got that type of lifestyle, it's really fun because, you get to see the country and you're taking your home with you in a way. And other people obviously don't really live in their trucks full time, but still, when they're in the truck for a week, maybe 2 weeks at a time, depending on where they're driving, especially if they're going like coast to coast or something like that, it really would be hard to not have, some of the comforts of home, like a nice bed or something like that. I'm guessing that, in Europe, and specifically, I'm mainly focused on the UK and Ireland in this regard. There's not nearly as large of a country to drive in, even if you're going from one end to the other. So you're not necessarily going to have to be gone from home for as long. So I guess it makes sense. And a lot of European countries are much smaller countries compared to the U.S. And so it does make sense that it would be less likely you would have something like a large bed and nice refrigerators and things like that in your trucks over in Europe. So yeah, that makes sense. I just had never even thought about it. Long, wide roads.
Much of an American truck's life is spent on the interstate system, where the lanes are wide and the roads are straight. For that reason, the long wheelbase of the truck is acceptable and typically makes the ride much more comfortable. Considering they are allowed to drive up to 12 hours every 24 hours, whereas European truckers can only drive 9 hours, that extra comfort is important. European semi-trucks are lighter and have shorter wheelbases, which makes them significantly easier to maneuver. Essentially, they are more compact and easier to work with in traffic and urban environments, which is perfect for the narrow roads in Europe. Also, the cab-over has a better overview and less blind spots, which increase safety noticeably, where the larger bonnets and A-pillars on the American trucks make it difficult for drivers to get a clear view of traffic.
I've not really seen any videos about the roads in the UK or Ireland, and let alone the roads in the rest of Europe. I'm guessing they're similar in a lot of ways, smaller, more compact, because I know that generally the entirety of Europe usually has, it's much more popular to have very compact cars compared to the amount of large trucks and SUVs and things like that we have in the US. So it makes sense that, also, am I mistaken that all over Europe, including in the UK and Ireland, you guys are more likely to live in cities and towns than Americans are? Like there's more Americans living in rural areas, or there's more, yeah, I do know that in the U.S., once you get out to the middle of the country, I mean, you go for very large stretches of highway without being in any sort of major city or traffic. So I'm guessing it may be, it makes a lot of sense now that I think about it that you guys would have more compact trucks. But I thought he was mistaken on the 12-hour thing. I think in 24 hours in the U.S., can't you drive for 14 hours? I may be mistaken on there, but that's what I remember it being. But anyway, let's continue.
Strict regulations. Stricter regulations in Europe make for different trucks. For starters, a European semi-truck can only be 18.75 meters, or about 61 feet. Some countries have some exceptions, but generally that is the rule. Because of these restrictions, European trucks have to be as short as possible so they can tow more cargo.
No kidding. So wait, hold on. Are they saying even with the trailer? Hold on, let me look back at that again. Hold on. Okay, so this isn't, this is the entirety. So can you guys actually have pull double trailers in, I keep on saying in Europe, but I mainly focus on British and Irish stuff on this channel, but I am very curious about the entirety of the continent of Europe. Including the UK and Ireland. Are any of the countries allowed to actually have double trailers? Because based off what he's saying here, it sounds like you can't. In the US, it's not like extremely common, but you definitely see it on a regular basis. If you're out on the highways, you'll see trucks pulling double trailers. So that'd be very interesting to know if that's a thing overseas.
Truck can only be 18.75 meters, or about 61 feet. Some countries have some exceptions, but generally that is the rule. Because of these restrictions, European trucks have to be as short as possible so they can tow more cargo. Considering American cabs can be 20 feet long, that only leaves 40 feet of room for cargo.
Wow, okay.
So, in order to make more room for cargo, the cab has to be as short as possible.
Wow, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Similar requirements in the US have been revoked back in 1986, and trucks now can be much longer. Actually, back in the day, cab-over trucks were quite popular in the US, but without strict limitations,
that's true. I do remember seeing those in
conventional design trucks prevailed.
A lot in older movies and things like that.
Speed and aerodynamics. A big difference between the European semi-trucks and American ones is that in Europe, the speed is limited to 90 kilometers per hour. But in some places in the US, trucks are allowed to reach 129 and even 137 kilometers per hour. It is on the long straight roads at high speed that better aerodynamics and longer wheelbase is a clear advantage for the long-nosed trucks, which are created for the long trips.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah. I mean,
conclusion.
You drive through like Texas and, down when you get into the West, man. I mean, you can go for very long stretches without really having any sharp curves or even having a bunch of traffic or anything. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure that's much less likely to, you're much less likely to have that over in Europe.
So the reason why there is such a big difference between trucks in Europe compared to America is that they are used in different ways. There are different rules that must be observed, both in terms of speed, driving time, lengths, weight, etc. And that there is a big difference between roads and the infrastructure. So, one is not necessarily better than the other, but they are adapted to the needs of truck owners, the driver, and the government requirements. Which is your favorite? Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe for much more.
Which is my favorite? Well, I mean, like you said, I mean, it makes sense that depending on the location, both have their advantages. And, I think if I was in Europe, I would much prefer the European trucks. But in America, on those long drives across country, definitely sounds like you'd want the longer trucks, especially because of the ability to have the cabs where you can sleep comfortably within them. So I'm guessing over in Europe, when you guys go on longer drives, I mean, if we're thinking of the UK or Ireland, I mean, I think someone told me the other day to drive from the bottom of the UK all the way to the top is roughly around 15 hours, is what I was told. And so if that's the case, I mean, that's basically someone would still have to sleep overnight. So are they just sleeping in the front, the cab? Are they sleeping upright, or do they, get a tent, or are they just, maybe the company, if they're working for a company, maybe they pay for you to get a room or something like that. I don't know. Let me know in the comments how that usually works. If you're a European truck driver, a British, Irish truck driver, let me know what happens when you are driving more than just being at home during the same day. If you're going to be gone overnight driving and you don't have the cab to sleep in, do you usually just sleep upright, or what do you do in that case? But I thought this was interesting, guys. It definitely reminds me that I want to look into kind of more about the roads over in the UK and Ireland. I know they're narrow, but I really haven't dived in and kind of I don't really understand exactly what it's like to truly drive on those roads. I want to explore that a little bit. And maybe especially from the truck driver perspective, because I think that would be very interesting, driving these big trucks on what are probably very, very narrow roads. I'm guessing that the roads in a lot of cases have very, very tight turns. Not that obviously in some areas in the US you're going to find that as well, but I think it's much more likely you're going to find that over where you guys are. But guys, this was interesting. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments or suggestions about this video or others. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow me on my journey to discover my British and Irish ancestry. Until next time, guys, peace.